the count won 41-30 by Rovers, and the most successful offloads, but that was won 17-16 by FC of any game so far this season. Rovers narrowly edged the meter numbers and also made 2 more breaks, plus crucially 6 fewer errors. They also had a better team tackle success rate, so they did win on the stats as well as the scoreboard.
Yep, individually, Lachlan Coote scored 2 tries, 1 try assist, 7 tackle busts, 214 metres, 3 clean breaks and 3 offloads. Ryan Hall with the other try and 169 metres. Ethan Ryan with 1 try assist, 133 metres. Mark Parcell with 127 metres and 3 offloads. For Hull, Danny Houghton made 55 tackles, of which 13 were mark tackles. Josh Griffin with 1 try assist, 137 metres. Liggy Sow, 115 metres and 3 successful offloads, and Adam Swift with 113 metres.
Always in our shadow said 4 all and 2 poor teams until a total bullshit knock-on call, and suddenly it's 16-4, after which we hit the panic button, forcing passes that's not on. Pathetic kicking game.
Esther said, we weren't very good. Jake tried too hard. Gale's kicks were rubbish. Jack Brown was our best player. Darnell didn't knock on there.
Let's see if every Hull fan mentions the knock-on. Joshua's granddad said, poor side beats very poor side. Too many egos on the pitch. Gale and Reynolds offering very little. Connor looking for the miracle play too often. Strange calls from Childs, but no excuse. When was the last time you saw offside at a scrum 25 yards away and asked for the knock-on? Well, last time I saw offside at a scrum was all weekend. I would say that part. But, yeah.
Carlton said, a very close game till Jimmy came to the field and KR couldn't be stopped. Seriously, KR outmuscled and outpowered FC, and this shows that the FC recruitment is outdated. Brad Fash tried to bring some bite back, but Coote was too good for the Snake and the Hurl FC team.
The first mention of Brad Fash. Page said, one of the worst performances I have seen. We looked flat, kicking game was non-existent. Again, too much lateral running. Our completion rate was shocking. Rovers outplayed us all over the park with just 1 try assist from Child. How they didn't put more points on us, I'll never know. Don't get too excited though, Rovers. You still haven't won anything since 1985. Tom
Andrews said, the sun shines bright on East Hull and the boys deliver. Coote, Ryan, Wood and Jez all have storming games, especially defensively. All the big names on the black and whites were clearly rattled and produced fuck all. Jake the trouser snake showing why he's miles off England. Someone should have chucked Grubb another drink. He looked knackered. And Brad Nash should have eaten before the game. Up the fucking Robins.
White Pie said, the Robins won the second best derby in rugby league, and Jake Connor showed why he's nowhere near Sean Wayne's England squad. After a tough first half where both sides made lots of errors, KR took control on the back of a questionable knock-on call. KR bossed the second half, and I suspect Tom will be reminding Paige of how things went for a while. Get used to the sofa, Tom.
Pop the Viking said, a good game to watch for the neutral. KR deserved the win.
Yeah, a few mentions, a few jokes sneaking in there about Brad Fash. Do you know what I would say? I thought it was in really bad taste. Whoever it was, another Hull FC player, obviously, rather than him, when he was interviewed after the game on Monday, like obviously made a joke about it, and they sort of put a finger in towards his mouth.
Yeah.
When he's still waiting for the hearing. I thought that was really poor taste, to be honest. But saying that, when you see Brad Fash's general demeanour, poor taste kind of is something that you expect, to be honest.
Yeah. He's not the most stylish, is he?
No. So, for people who aren't aware, Brad Fash has been referred to a tribunal which will be heard the day after we're recording, so we don't know the outcome of that. Grade E biting charge. The allegation was made by Elliot Minchella after a tackle Minchella had made on Fash, and then you could see that Minchella took exception to something, and then and was penalised for taking exception to something, and then when the ref penalised him, Minchella made the allegation about the bite. And then the replays certainly weren't particularly positive from a Brad Fash point of view. if he has done it, then it's completely mindless, and it's the kind of thing that you'd expect someone who thinks that haircut looks good to do. What did you make of? Let's talk about that first. What did you make of it?
Well, where we were sitting, couldn't see anything.
No angle on it, yeah.
Couldn't really understand what was going on much more than it was a bad tackle by Minchella.
Well, I think it was the push, weren't it? Afterwards, he pushed him in the head when he was getting up. That
right,
was penalised for, yeah. But again, you had your back. Sorry, Fash's back was facing you, weren't it?
Yeah, I mean, we were seats 5, 6, and 7 on row C, so actually not even in line with the touchline, further off the pitch than that.
Okay, yeah.
We didn't have the best view of a lot, to be perfectly honest. And with where the big screen is, again, you can't see a lot of detail there. I don't know if it was on the highlights, but I haven't watched our highlights.
No.
Who wants to do that, really? Fash isn't really that sort of a player. However, also, what's Minchella's fingers doing in his mouth?
I don't think any player's that sort of a player. This is the thing. Like, it happens so rarely that I don't think any player's that sort of a player, but people do stupid fucking stuff on it in our sport sometimes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
What Minchella's hand was doing near his mouth, it looked like Minchella had kind of gone to wrap him up from kind of behind, so one of his hands came around in that kind of area, basically, just in trying to sort of control the speed of the ruck. So it wasn't like he'd gone for his face. It didn't look any like he'd deliberately put his hand there, sort of thing. But he just ended up there, as it can do sometimes. To be honest, I don't think there was any malice aimed for or intended by Minchella. It just was where his hand ended up, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, as I say, like, it's not something I've seen. Yeah.
We'll have to see what the tribunal says.
I was going to say, I think that's the thing, isn't it? The fact that Hull are contesting it makes me think that it's clearly not obvious one way or the other.
Yeah. I thought it looked like the finger did go in the mouth, but then the mouth did seem to engage.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was surprised we didn't get better stuff in the fan reviews from it. To be honest, I was expecting someone to say something like Joe Exotic's finger buffet or something to that extent, but we still got a couple of jokes about it. It's hopefully, it's all not what it seemed to be, and we can move on from it. The other big talking point from those fan views that we have to talk about, Sarah, is the knock on that wasn't a knock on from Darnell McIntosh.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't look like a knock on from where I was sitting. It looked to have clearly gone backwards. Child did not see it that way, clearly, and it did lead to a try being scored.
Well, it led to the field position for a try to be scored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it was Child's greatest game refereeing. However, I don't really think that had any impact on the result, because however bad he was, we had at least a dozen players that were as bad, if not worse.
Yeah, when I was watching the game, that was the only error that I picked out, really, to be honest. There was one where the whole players were thinking it wasn't a knock on, where it was out wide, and it was one of the many aimless passes that Jake Connor threw in this game to Swift on the wing, and Swift had to reach behind him for him. Because the ball landed behind where Swift was, I think everyone would have thought that went backwards, but that definitely did go forwards from where he touched it. Because of the speed he was moving at, it did land in front of where he touched it. But this one did go backwards. What I've always said, though, and you'll know that I've said this before, Sarah, is if you catch the ball, then we don't need to worry about which way it went. If you don't make an error, it still was an error. Darnell McIntosh wasn't trying to tap the ball backwards or anything like that. He dropped it. It just happened to go backwards rather than forwards. If he caught the ball, it wouldn't have been a question.
His confidence at the moment seems absolutely shot.
It's his concentration for me. It always has been. Maybe
that is what it is. I've not been so aware of him when he played for Huddersfield. So, yeah, it could well be that it's his concentration.
Yeah. And, look, like you say, it led to the field position for the first Coote try. Even though it was a well-worked play by them, they wouldn't have had that field position without the error that happened. But you've got to move on from that, haven't you, and sharpen up. And there's no excuse for that kick chase that you... Well, was it a kick chase that was put in for the second Coote try only a few minutes later?
We'd switched off. I mean, we had half an hour where it was 0-0, and then Hall scored, and then it went 4-4, and then there were those 2 tries in the second half by Rovers. But there was still 25 minutes of time after that Coote try. But as soon as he scored it, I thought, that's it, it's game over. It's 12 points. It shouldn't be game over with 25 minutes to play. But it just didn't feel like we were going to do anything. I mean, Gale doesn't seem to have a clue how to actually kick a ball with any purpose to allow anybody to chase it.
There was a couple from Reynolds as well, close to their line.
Reynolds was kicking them too hard along the floor and putting them dead. Connor refuses to run the ball out of defence. He wants to pass it every single time to somebody that's 50 metres away from him rather than running and actually making some progress up the pitch. No, I can't possibly do that. I'm too much of a star. Didn't know. And then he'll pass it across to his winger. One of these days, somebody's going to realise they're going to intercept it. Or you're going to knock on again.
Well, especially if players have got a tendency to switch off in that back line.
Exactly. And then you're going to wait until you're 20 yards out and do your hurl like dummy and then pass. But forget that, players might be reading it as as your dummy, not the pass. And then they've overrun it. Or you're just crap at passing and you've passed it into touch for the 4th time. And then you've got the audacity to turn around and have a go at said winger.
Yeah.
For being out of position. Not, I'm sorry, I'm an idiot, I'll try and pass better in future. No, it's your fault because you weren't stood 20 yards out of field.
Well, yeah. My note that I'd written about that last 20 minutes, because the first 20 minutes of the second half was all about Hull KR. They executed the plays when they had the opportunities to, and credit to them for that. The second 20 minutes to me was almost all about Hull FC in the total opposite way. I've written down, you went into frantic mode too early, and everything looked like individuals trying to pull something off rather than going back into what plays and structures have actually been practiced all week. And that's where you end up with disconnects, like passes going behind players, kicks being put in when there's no chasers, that sort of thing. And that just seemed to happen too early in the game. Like the heads had gone.
Well, I think it was as if we were 2 points down with 5 minutes to play, and it was a cup final.
Well, it was like it was 10 points down with 5. It was like it was 5 minutes left when it was 25 minutes left.
Yeah, and I know that Rovers fans will probably disagree with me. When we played sets, we made when we played on those few occasions, we played a set of 6 out, and had a decent kick. We made some very good meters. We made better meters than them.
Well, I think that the first half was really good for lots of it, for both sides, and I think you cancelled each other out, but it was entertaining to watch as a neutral. Like what Paul said, I agree with that. Good game to watch.